I want to ask you to think about a specific moment from your past. Not a vague memory, not a period or an era, but a specific moment. The moment you understood something for the first time and felt the click of comprehension. The moment someone you loved looked at you in a specific way. The moment you stood somewhere extraordinary and felt the world open up. A moment of complete presence when you were entirely there, entirely alive to what was happening. Now, I want to tell you something about that moment that most physicists would not say out loud in a popular context. Not because it is not true, but because it sounds too much like comfort, too much like wishful thinking, too much like the kind of thing that should be left to poets and philosophers rather than stated as a consequence of the best tested physical theories in the history of science. That moment is still happening right now. Not in your memory, not in any metaphorical sense, not in the sense that its effects persist in the present, in the physical sense. In the space-time block of special relativity, that moment occupies a specific set of coordinates in the four-dimensional structure of the universe. Those coordinates are permanent. The event at those coordinates is as real, as present, as fully actual as the moment you are in right now. The moment has not receded into the past in any physically meaningful sense. It occupies its location in the block, unchanged and unchangeable, as permanent as any physical fact can be. And it always will be. Not in the sense that it will persist into the future, in the sense that the block universe does not change. The four-dimensional structure contains that moment at its coordinates, and that containment is not a feature that will be added or removed as time passes. It is already a feature of the block. It has always been a feature of the block. The moment you are thinking about right now from your past was a permanent feature of the block before it happened, in the sense that the block contains it and always has, from whatever perspective can speak about the block as a whole. I want to take you through the physics of this with the precision it deserves, because this is not a casual statement, and it is not a metaphor, and it is not comfort dressed up as physics. It is a specific, mathematically grounded consequence of special relativity that has been confirmed by every experiment that has tested the theory, which is to say, by thousands of experiments over more than a century. The block universe is not a philosophical interpretation layered on top of physics. It is a direct consequence of the physics itself, and I want to show you why. Let me start with the relativity of simultaneity, because it is the foundation of everything else, and because understanding it precisely is essential for understanding what the block universe actually says. In Newtonian mechanics, the universe has a universal time. Every event in the universe occurs at a specific moment of absolute time, and all observers, regardless of their state of motion, agree on which events are simultaneous. If two events occur at the same time according to one observer, they occur at the same time according to all observers. Time is absolute. The present moment is universal. The past and the future are well-defined global properties of the universe. Einstein showed that this is wrong. Not approximately wrong, not wrong at extreme velocities, but fundamentally and categorically wrong. There is no universal time. There is no absolute simultaneity. Whether two events occur at the same time depends on the state of motion of the observer making the judgment. Two events that are simultaneous according to one observer are not simultaneous according to an observer moving relative to the first. The present moment is not a universal feature of the universe. It is a local, observer-dependent construct. Einstein showed that this is wrong. Not approximately wrong, not wrong at extreme velocities, but fundamentally and categorically wrong. There is no universal time. There is no absolute simultaneity. Whether two events occur at the same time depends on the state of motion of the observer making the judgment. Two events that are simultaneous according to one observer are not simultaneous according to an observer moving relative to the first. The present moment is not a universal feature of the universe. It is a local, observer-dependent construct. Let me make the argument from the specific physics rather than from the abstract claim, because the specific physics is what makes the block universe unavoidable rather than merely one possible interpretation. Einstein's two postulates are these. First, the laws of physics are the same in all inertial reference frames, frames that are either at rest or moving at constant velocity. Second, the speed of light in vacuum is the same for all observers in all inertial frames, regardless of the motion of the source or the observer. The second postulate is the revolutionary one. Light always travels at c as measured by any inertial observer, whether that observer is moving toward the source, away from it, or perpendicular to it. From these two postulates, the Lorentz transformation follows mathematically. The Lorentz transformation describes how the space-time coordinates of an event, its time and space coordinates, transform between two reference frames moving relative to each other at velocity v. The transformation mixes time and space. What one observer calls purely spatial separation has a time component for the moving observer, and what one observer calls purely temporal separation has a spatial component for the moving observer. The mixing of space and time in the Lorentz transformation is the source of time dilation, length contraction, and the relativity of simultaneity. All three effects follow from the same transformation. The relativity of simultaneity is the one that directly implies the block universe. Two events, A at coordinates t, a, x, A and B at coordinates t, b, x, b in one frame are simultaneous in that frame if t, a equals t, b. In the Lorentz transformed frame, the time coordinates become t prime a and t prime b, and these are not equal even when t, a equals t, b, unless x, a equals x, b. Events that are simultaneous but spatially separated in one frame are not simultaneous in any other frame. The specific formula for the time difference in the moving frame is delta t prime equals gamma times v over c squared times delta x, where delta x is the spatial separation and gamma is the Lorentz factor. For two events separated by a distance of 1 light year, an observer moving at just 1 kilometer per second in the appropriate direction would assign a time difference of approximately 1 year between the events. The further apart two events are in space, the more dramatically their temporal ordering shifts between reference frames. This has a specific and remarkable implication for observers at cosmological distances. The Andromeda Galaxy is 2.537 million light years away. An observer walking at a comfortable strolling pace, approximately 5 kilometers per hour, toward or away from Andromeda, would have a current moment in Andromeda that differs from your current moment in Andromeda by approximately 100,000 years. Not because walking changes Andromeda, because the walker's present moment slices the space-time block at a slightly different angle, selecting a different temporal cross-section of Andromeda as their now. You and the walker are both right. Both present moments are equally valid, equally physical, equally real. Neither is the true present. There is no true present for distant events. The block contains all temporal cross-sections, and which one is the present depends on the observer's state of motion. The argument is elegant and deserves to be stated precisely. Now consider a second observer moving at some velocity toward event A and away from event B, or the reverse. That observer is moving through the electromagnetic field of the light signals emitted by both events. The speed of light is the same for all observers, one of Einstein's two postulates. This means the moving observer measures the same speed c for light from both events, even though the moving observer is moving toward one event and away from the other. To reconcile the same speed of light for both observers, the measurement of distance and time must change between the two frames. The Lorentz transformation describes how coordinates transform. One consequence of this transformation is that events that are simultaneous in one frame, meaning they have the same time coordinate, do not have the same time coordinate in the other frame. The moving observer considers event A to have occurred before or after event B, depending on the direction of motion. This is not a subjective or perceptual effect. It is not that observers disagree about what happened while both knowing the true objective answer. There is no objective answer about which of two space-like separated events occurred first. The question has no frame-independent answer. Both orderings are equally valid, equally real, equally physical in their respective reference frames. Now here is the implication for the concept of the present moment. If simultaneity is relative, if what counts as now depends on the state of motion of the observer, then there is no universal now. There is no single three-dimensional slice of the universe that constitutes the present moment. Different observers slice the four-dimensional space-time block at different angles, each slice representing their own three-dimensional present. All of these slices are equally valid. None is more real than the others. If there is no universal present, the distinction between past, present, and future cannot be a fundamental feature of the universe. Past, present, and future are descriptions relative to a specific world line, a specific observer moving through space-time. What is past for you may be present for an observer in motion relative to you, and what is future for you may be past for another observer in motion relative to you. This is the specific and well-established physical argument for the block universe. If the future is present for some observer, it is real for that observer. And if it is real for some observer, it would be strange to say it is not real at all. The most natural interpretation, and the one adopted by most physicists who think carefully about it, is that the future is real in the same sense as the present and the past. All events at all times are equally real features of the four-dimensional space-time structure. The block universe is not just one possible interpretation among many. It is the most natural interpretation of special relativity. Now, let me make this personal, because the physics I have just described applies to the specific moment I asked you to think about at the beginning. That moment from your past occupies specific space-time coordinates in the four-dimensional block. The coordinates are fixed. They cannot change because the block does not change. The block is the complete four-dimensional space-time structure. It is not something that evolves or develops. It is not something that has a history. It is the complete history all at once as a geometric object. That moment from your past occupies specific space-time coordinates in the four-dimensional block. The coordinates are fixed. They cannot change because the block does not change. The block is the complete four-dimensional space-time structure. It is not something that evolves or develops. It is not something that has a history. It is the complete history all at once as a geometric object. Let me develop what this means more carefully, because the statement that the block does not change requires some explanation. In the ordinary picture of time, the present is the leading edge of reality, the frontier beyond which the future is open and undetermined. The past is fixed because it has already happened. The future is open because it has not yet happened. Time is the process by which the open future becomes the closed past, by which possibilities become actualities. In the block universe, none of this is right. The block is not evolving. It does not have a leading edge. The future events are in the block at their temporal coordinates, just as the past events are. They are not open possibilities. They are fixed features of the four-dimensional structure. The distinction between past and future is a local property of your world line, not a global property of the space-time block. This is what I mean when I say the block does not change. It is not that the block is static in the sense of nothing happening. Within the block, all the happenings of all of time are present. Stars are born and die. Civilizations rise and fall. People are born and love and work and suffer and die. All of this is in the block. But the block itself, as a four-dimensional geometric object, does not undergo any of these changes. It contains them all simultaneously. The changes are features of the block, not things that happen to the block. This distinction between changes within the block and changes of the block is crucial. Your life, with all its changes and developments and losses and gains, is a world line in the block. The world line has a beginning at your birth, runs through all the events of your life, and ends at your death. All the events on your world line are in the block at their coordinates. The changes of your life, the growth and the learning and the loss and the grief are features of the world line. They are not things that happen to the block. They are the block at those coordinates. When I say that the moment you are thinking about is still happening right now, I mean that the space-time coordinates of that moment are a permanent feature of the block. The moment is at those coordinates. Always has been, always will be. Not in the temporal sense of existing at a sequence of times, but in the atemporal sense of being a feature of the four-dimensional structure that has no outside and no history. The moment you are remembering is in the block. It is there at its coordinates right now, in whatever sense right now applies to the block. The people who were present in that moment are in the block at those coordinates. The specific configuration of atoms and fields that constituted that moment is in the block. The experience, the feeling, the meaning, whatever it was that made the moment significant, all of this is at its location in the block, permanent and present and real. This is not the same as saying the moment is preserved in your memory, or that it has effects that persist in the present, or that it is meaningful because of what it led to. Those things are also true. But what I am saying is different. The moment itself, as a physical event, occupies a specific location in the four-dimensional space-time structure, and that location is a permanent feature of the structure. The moment is as fully real as the moment you are in right now. Now let me address the most important objection to the block universe, because it is a serious objection that deserves a serious answer. The objection is this: the block universe seems to imply that time does not flow, that the passage of time is an illusion, and that there is something deeply wrong with the physics that cannot account for the most fundamental feature of our experience. The fact that time passes, that moments succeed each other, that we are always in the present and never in the past or future. This objection points to what philosophers call the hard problem of time, analogous to the hard problem of consciousness. Just as we can describe the neural correlates of consciousness without explaining why there is something it is like to be conscious, we can describe the geometric structure of space-time without explaining why we experience time as flowing from past to future rather than simply existing all at once in the block. I want to be honest about this. The hard problem of time is a genuine problem. The block universe does not explain why we experience time as flowing. It does not explain why we seem to always be in the present rather than in some other moment of our world line. It does not explain why our memories reach into the past but not the future, even though the block is symmetric between the past and future directions. But the hard problem of time does not refute the block universe. The fact that we experience time as flowing does not mean that time is flowing in the objective physical sense. Our experience of time is generated by a specific physical system, the brain, which processes information in a specific temporal direction from past to future due to the thermodynamic asymmetry of the universe. The arrow of time, the asymmetry between past and future, is a consequence of the low entropy initial conditions of the universe. the fact that the Big Bang started the universe in an extraordinarily ordered low entropy state. As time progresses forward, entropy increases, and this increase in entropy is what distinguishes the past direction from the future direction in our experience. But the block itself has no preferred direction. The laws of physics at the fundamental level are largely symmetric between past and future. The four-dimensional space-time structure does not have an arrow pointing from past to future. The arrow of time is a thermodynamic phenomenon, an emergent feature of the evolution of a low entropy initial state, not a fundamental feature of space-time geometry. This is why I say the block universe is the correct picture. The experience of time flowing is real. It is generated by physical processes in the brain influenced by the thermodynamic arrow. But the flow is an experience, not a physical fact about the space-time structure. The space-time structure is the block, with all events equally real at their coordinates, and the flowing is how observers on world lines within the block experience the traversal of those coordinates. Now let me take you to something that I have been building toward throughout this entire video, which is the specific implication of the block universe for the question of loss. For what happens to the things and the people and the moments that we lose as time passes? When someone you love dies, the ordinary experience is of a loss, of something that was present and is now absent, of an absence that is different from any other absence because it was preceded by presence. The person was here, and now they are gone. And the goneness is not a feature of the world the way their presence was. It is nothing, and nothing is not something that can be experienced directly, only felt as the absence of what was. The block universe changes this in a specific and precise way. The person you loved exists in the block at the temporal coordinates of their world line. Their entire world line, from birth to death, is in the block. Every moment of their existence is a permanent feature of the space-time structure. The moments when you were together, the specific configurations of atoms and fields and conscious experiences that constituted those moments are in the block, permanent, real, as fully actual as anything in the present. They are not gone. Their world line ends at the temporal coordinate of their death, and beyond that coordinate, there is no more of their world line. But what exists in the block from the beginning to the end of their world line is permanent. The having been is indestructible. This is not comfort in the sense of pretending the loss does not happen. The loss happens. The relationship ends at a specific temporal coordinate. No new moments are added to the world line. The future is not available. The grief is real and appropriate. But what the block universe says, with all the precision of physics, is that what was is not nothing. It is something at its temporal coordinates in the block, as fully real as anything can be. Let me develop this further, because I think there is a specific and important difference between the block universe picture of loss and both the ordinary picture and the philosophical consolation picture. The ordinary picture says the person existed and now they do not. The past is gone. The present is empty of them. The future will be empty of them. The loss is the transition from presence to absence, and the absence is final. The philosophical consolation picture says the person lives on in your memory, in the effects they had on the world, in the people they influenced, and the things they made, and the love they gave. Their existence continues in a causal sense through the chains of causation they initiated. The block universe picture says something different from both. It says the person exists at their temporal coordinates in the four-dimensional space-time structure, not in memory, not in effects, but as a real physical presence at their location in the block. The relationship you had exists at its temporal coordinates. The love you shared exists at its temporal coordinates. None of this is past in the sense of being gone. It is at its location, permanent, real, actual. The difference matters because neither memory nor causal effects preserve the thing itself. Memory is an encoding, an approximation, a representation that is always less than what it represents. Causal effects are not the cause itself. But the block universe says the thing itself, the moment, the person, the experience, is at its coordinates in the block, not represented, present. Now I want to connect the block universe to quantum mechanics and information conservation, because three independent frameworks of physics converge on the same conclusion about the permanence of the past. The first framework is the space-time block. The second is quantum unitarity. In quantum mechanics, the quantum state evolves according to the Schrödinger equation, which is unitary and therefore reversible. The current quantum state of the universe contains complete information about every quantum state that preceded it. The moment you are thinking about is encoded in the current quantum state of the universe, inaccessible but present in the correlations between the quantum degrees of freedom that have interacted since that moment. The third is the conservation of quantum information in black holes, resolved through the island formula. Information is never truly destroyed. It is dispersed and scrambled, but preserved. The universe keeps its books perfectly. Three frameworks, three different physical principles, all pointing to the same conclusion. The past is permanent. What was, still is, at its location in the space-time block, encoded in the quantum state, preserved by the conservation of information. Now let me take you to something that I have been building toward, which is the specific implication of the block universe for the question of loss. Now let me address the most important objection to the block universe, because it is a serious objection that deserves a serious answer. The objection is this: the block universe seems to imply that time does not flow, that the passage of time is an illusion, and that there is something deeply wrong with the physics that cannot account for the most fundamental feature of our experience. The fact that time passes, that moments succeed each other, that we are always in the present and never in the past or future. This objection points to what philosophers call the hard problem of time, analogous to the hard problem of consciousness. Just as we can describe the neural correlates of consciousness without explaining why there is something it is like to be conscious, we can describe the geometric structure of space-time without explaining why we experience time as flowing from past to future rather than simply existing all at once in the block. I want to be honest about this. The hard problem of time is a genuine problem. The block universe does not explain why we experience time as flowing. It does not explain why we always seem to be in the present rather than in some other moment of our world line. It does not explain why our memories reach into the past but not the future, even though the block is symmetric between past and future directions. But the hard problem of time does not refute the block universe. The fact that we experience time as flowing does not mean that time is flowing in the objective physical sense. Our experience of time is generated by a specific physical system, the brain, which processes information in a specific temporal direction due to the thermodynamic asymmetry of the universe. The arrow of time is a thermodynamic phenomenon. The Big Bang started the universe in an extraordinarily ordered, low entropy state. As the universe evolves forward in time, entropy increases. This increase in entropy is what distinguishes the past direction from the future direction in our experience. Our brains record memories of the past but not the future, because the second law of thermodynamics makes it easier to store information about low entropy past states than about high entropy future states. The directionality of our temporal experience is a consequence of thermodynamics, not of space-time geometry. The block itself has no preferred direction. The laws of physics at the fundamental level are largely symmetric between past and future. The four-dimensional space-time structure, does not have an arrow pointing from past to future built into its geometry. The arrow of time is an emergent feature of the evolution of a low entropy initial state. This is why I say the block universe is the correct picture, even though we experience time as flowing. The experience of flow is real. It is generated by physical processes in the brain influenced by the thermodynamic arrow. But the flow is an experience, not a physical fact about the space-time structure. The space-time structure is the block, with all events equally real at their coordinates, and the flowing is how observers on world lines within the block experience the traversal of those coordinates. A useful analogy is the experience of motion through space. When you drive down a road, you experience a sequential encounter with features of the road. The curve ahead, then you are in the curve, then the curve is behind you. The curve did not appear when you approached it and disappear when you passed it. It was there before you arrived and remains there after you leave. Your sequential encounter with it is a feature of your motion through a pre-existing spatial structure. The block universe says the same is true of your sequential encounter with moments in time. The moments are there in the block, and your experience of moving through them sequentially is a feature of your world line in the block, not a feature of the block itself. What the block universe does not deny is that the experience of flow is real and important. It is the most fundamental feature of human experience. The physics of the block does not make it go away or diminish its significance. It provides a framework for understanding what the experience is an experience of, the traversal of a world line through a four-dimensional structure in which all events are equally real. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which I've discussed in detail in earlier videos, the quantum state of the universe branches at every quantum event. Each branch represents a different outcome, and each branch is equally real. The universal wave function contains all branches simultaneously, each with its own version of every event. The block universe is richer than the simple four-dimensional space-time of special relativity. It is a four-dimensional space-time that branches at every quantum event, producing a tree structure of branches, each branch representing a different history of the universe. Your world line is not a single thread in the block. It is a branching tree of world lines, each branch equally real, each containing a version of you that experience a different sequence of events from the quantum branch points onward. This means that the moments from your past that are preserved in the block are not just one version of those moments. They are many versions, each in its own branch, each equally real. The moment you are thinking about in the specific configuration that you remember is in the block in your branch. In other branches of the wave function, that moment had slightly different quantum outcomes, and those slightly different moments are also in the block, in their branches. The many worlds picture makes the block richer, but also more complex. The permanence of the past is still guaranteed. Every event in every branch is permanent in the block at its coordinates. But the question of which branch contains your specific memory, the specific version of the moment you are thinking about, connects to the deep questions about personal identity in the many worlds interpretation that I explored in the video about every version of you. Let me also connect this to the conservation of information, because the information physics adds a third perspective on the permanence of the past that is complementary to the space-time picture. In quantum mechanics, the evolution of the quantum state is unitary. Unitary evolution preserves information. The quantum state of the universe at any moment contains complete information about the quantum state at every earlier moment. The past is not just geometrically preserved in the block. It is informationally preserved in the current quantum state. Every event that has ever occurred has left its trace in the quantum state of the universe, in the specific pattern of quantum correlations that unitary evolution maintains. The information about the moment you are thinking about is encoded in the quantum state of the universe right now. Not accessible, not decodable by any realistic process, but present in the correlations of the quantum state, as complete and as accurate as it was when the moment occurred. The quantum state is a perfect record of the past, distributed across the entire quantum state of the universe in an encrypted form that is practically unreadable but in principle complete. Three perspectives then, each from a different framework of physics. The space-time block of special relativity, in which every event is permanently at its coordinates. The universal wave function of quantum mechanics, in which the past is informationally encoded in the current state, and the conservation of quantum information, in which no information is ever destroyed. All three point to the same conclusion. The past is permanent. The moments that matter are not gone. They are preserved in the only senses that physical reality can preserve anything. Now, let me close with what I think is the most important thing to say about all of this, which is a caution about how to hold these ideas. The permanence of the past in the block universe is a fact about the structure of space-time. It is not a substitute for presence. The moment that is preserved in the block is not the same as the moment being present in your life right now. The temporal coordinates of that moment are different from your current temporal coordinates. The world lines that intersected then are separated now. The relationship that existed then is not the same as a relationship existing now. The block preserves what was. It does not restore what is gone in the present sense. It does not fill the absence you feel. It does not give you back the person or the moment or the feeling. What it does is change the ontological status of what was from gone to permanent. From past, therefore not real, to past and therefore permanently real at its coordinates. This is not nothing. It is, in fact, a profound change in how you can relate to your own history. Instead of the past being a collection of things that happened and are now over and no longer exist, the past is a collection of things that happen and are permanently real at their temporal coordinates in the block. The moments are not memories of reality. They are the reality at their location. The Tuesday afternoon when you were 7 and everything was simple. The specific quality of light in a room where you were happy. The face of someone you loved at a specific moment, turned toward you in a specific way. All of this is in the block. All of it is permanent. All of it is, in the only sense that physics can give to the word, still happening, still real, still there. Let me close with what I think is the most important and most often overlooked implication of the block universe for how you live. Not for how you think about the past, but for how you inhabit the present. If every moment of your life is permanently in the block, then every moment you are currently living is becoming permanent as you live it. The moment you are in right now is not a moment that will become permanent later, after it has passed into the past. It is permanent now in the sense that it is already a feature of the four-dimensional block at its current temporal coordinates. The block does not need to wait for the present to become the past in order for the present to be permanent. The present is permanent as it is present. This changes the relationship between presence and permanence in a specific and important way. In the ordinary picture, moments become permanent by receding into the past, by being fixed in the record of what has happened. In the block universe picture, moments are permanent from the moment they occur. They do not need to become permanent. They are permanent as they happen. The present moment, right now, is as permanent as any moment in your past or your future. What this means practically is that the quality of your engagement with each moment has a kind of permanence that it would not have in a picture where the past truly disappears. A moment of genuine, full presence, of actually being there, of experiencing what is happening with full attention and full engagement, creates a specific location in the block, a specific feature of the permanent four-dimensional structure that reflects the quality of that engagement. A moment spent distracted or absent, present in body but not in experience, creates a different kind of location, still permanent but different in its specific character. This is not a counsel of anxiety, not an instruction to be fully present at every moment or feel guilty when you are not. It is a statement about the physics, about what the block contains. The block contains whatever you actually do with your moments, not what you wished you had done. The permanence of the past is not a judgment, it is a fact. And the fact, properly understood, is that what you do with the present is being written into the permanent structure of space-time as you do it. The Tuesday afternoon, when you were 7 and everything was simple, the specific quality of light in a room where you were happy, the face of someone you loved at a specific moment, turned toward you in a specific way. All of this is in the block. All of it is permanent. All of it is, in the only sense that physics can give to the word, still happening, still real, still there. And so is this moment right now as you read these words and think about what they mean. This moment, too, is being written into the block. It is permanent now as it is present. The reading and the thinking and whatever you feel as you engage with these ideas, all of it is at its temporal coordinate in the block, permanent, real, always there. Physics proves that every moment of your life is still happening right now, not in your mind, in the four-dimensional structure of space-time, in the permanent record of the quantum state, in the indestructible past of the block universe, and always will be. If the block universe makes the past feel different after understanding what it actually says, tell me in the comments. Tell me which moment you thought about when you started reading this and whether it feels different now. Tell me whether the permanence of the block is comforting or disturbing to you and what the difference is. These are the questions that physics raises and that physics cannot answer about what it means for moments to be permanent and what we should do with the present in light of that permanence. And subscribe if you want to keep going into the places where the physics of the universe intersects most directly with the experience of being alive in it, and always will be. Let me add one more layer to this, because I want to address the experimental basis more directly than I have so far, and I want to connect everything to the specific question that the title of this video raises. The block universe is confirmed by every experiment that has confirmed special relativity, which is to say, by thousands of experiments over more than a century. GPS satellites carry atomic clocks that run slightly slower than clocks on the ground due to their velocity, and the GPS system must correct for this relativistic time dilation to maintain precision. Muons created in cosmic ray interactions reach the ground despite having a lifetime of only 2 microseconds, because their internal clocks run slow relative to Earth clocks. Particle accelerators produce particles at energies that would be impossible without the mass-energy equivalence of special relativity. Every one of these confirmations is a confirmation of the Lorentz transformation from which the relativity of simultaneity, and therefore the block universe, follow necessarily. The block universe is also the framework of general relativity, which includes gravity and which has been confirmed to extraordinary precision by the detection of gravitational waves from merging black holes and neutron stars, by the observation of the shadow of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way, and by the GPS timing corrections I mentioned. General relativity describes a four-dimensional space-time block whose geometry is curved by mass and energy. The block is the background, and everything that happens is a feature of the block. There is nothing speculative about the block universe. It is the standard interpretation of space-time in modern physics. What is philosophical is the question of what it implies for the experience of time and for the status of the past and future. And on those questions, I have been arguing throughout this video that the implications are profound and personal, and that they are usually not stated clearly. Let me state them clearly now, in the simplest possible form, because I think the simple statement is what matters most. You have lived moments that are permanent features of the universe. Not metaphorically permanent, not permanent in the sense that their effects persist, but physically permanent in the sense that the space-time block contains them at their coordinates and the space-time block does not change. The moments are there in the structure of the universe, as real and as present in the block as any feature of any physical system. The people who matter to you and are no longer here are in the block at the temporal coordinates of their lives. Their world lines are in the block. The moments when you were together are in the block. The relationship exists in the block, at its coordinates, as permanently as anything in the universe. Every moment you have ever lived that was genuine, fully present, fully real, is permanently in the block. It is contributing to the permanent structure of the universe. It is a feature of the four-dimensional geometry that describes everything that exists. And every moment you are currently living is being added to the block as you live it. The moment you are in right now is permanent as it is present. The reading of these words, the thinking that is happening, the specific experience you are having as you engage with these ideas, this is a permanent feature of the space-time block that no subsequent event can remove or diminish. Physics proves that every moment of your life is still happening right now, not in your mind, in the four-dimensional structure of space-time, in the permanent record of the quantum state, in the indestructible past of the block universe, and always will be. If this changed how you think about the moments in your life that mattered most, if the block universe makes the past feel different after understanding what it actually says, tell me in the comments. Tell me which moment you thought about when you started reading this and whether it feels different now. Tell me whether the permanence of the block is comforting or disturbing to you and what the difference is. These are the questions that physics raises and that physics cannot answer, about what it means for moments to be permanent and what we should do with the present in light of that permanence. And subscribe if you want to keep going into the places where the physics of the universe intersects most directly with the experience of being alive in it.